My boyfriend argues that tongues is not a real thing, but an actual language. What are your thoughts? Okay, so her boyfriend says tongues, and I'm sure he's watching right now because they sent him this question. Tongues is not real. It's just a known language, and that can't be anything farther from the truth. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10 says there's given different kinds of tongues. So the baseline you need to get is when it comes to speaking in tongues, the actual gift is called different kinds of tongues. So if there's a tongue with an interpretation, there's a tongue with a foreign language, there's a prayer tongue, there's a tongue of angels. There's not just one type of tongues. So 1 Corinthians 12, there's an interpreted tongue where you can interpret it. 1 Corinthians 14, this is what Paul says. He who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men, but to God. Okay, look at this. For no one understands him. However, in the Spirit, he speaks mysteries. So that's showing us this type of tongue is only to God. It's not a known language like your boyfriend might say. I'm not trying to be rude to your boyfriend, but he's wrong. It's not a known language. It's a heavenly tongue that is you speaking to God. So there's an interpretation tongue where you speak and then you could pray for an interpretation. Paul says that. Then there's a tongue where you speak to God, not to man. So one tongue is to build up the church. Another tongue is to build up yourself. It's a private tongue. You don't speak to men, but to God. It's for your own spirit. Look at what Romans 8:26 says. In the same way, the Spirit helps in our weakness. When we don't know what to pray for, look at this. This is Romans 8:26. The Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. So that is not a language. That's not understood by man. That is wordless groans as the Spirit prays out of us. Jude chapter 1, verse 20. But you, friends, build yourselves up in your holy faith by praying in the Holy Spirit. So praying in tongues is like bench pressing for your spirit, man. 1 Corinthians 13:1. If I speak with the tongues of man and a tongue of angels, but I don't have love, I'm a sounding brass or clanging cymbal. So there we have 4 or 5 verses. There is a tongue of interpretation. There's a foreign tongue where you go to another country and you speak a language you don't even know. You preach the gospel and they say, how do you know our language? And then there's a tongue of angels, a tongue of building up, a tongue of intercession. There's different kinds of tongues. So respectfully, Paul says, do not forbid speaking in tongues. Do not forbid. And Paul said, I speak in tongues more than all of you. But we know Paul was not speaking in tongues publicly. So where was he speaking in tongues? Ding, ding, ding. He was speaking in tongues in private.